It's safe to say that Ohio State has one of the best defenses in the country.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to another Victory Monday here at Locked On Buckeyes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day here on Monday, September 30th in the year 2024. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast, and today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Saturday night in East Lansing, Michigan was one of those days that Ohio State was going to be tested in a way that they had not been tested all season long. Aiden Childs and the Spartans offense had a great game plan early. Even got some opportunities on fourth down and even got into the red zone where they thought they were going to capitalize and keep the game close. That wasn't what happened. Ohio State's defense rose to the occasion. They were challenged all week, and they answered the call, and they showed everybody why they have one of the best defenses in the country. And I don't believe that's a hot take. It's the correct take. That Ohio State all year long has showed they have guys up front. They have guys at linebacker, and they have guys in the secondary that consistently get the job done. And when they play like a well-oiled machine, they're really hard to stop. I mean, even on the first drive of the game, Michigan State is driving. Michigan State is moving the ball, getting chunk plays. Davis Igbinosun gets a stop on 3rd and 9. It ends up being 4th and 1. There was some cushion between him and the defender, but by the time between him and the receiver, by the time the receiver caught the ball, Davis Igbinosun was right there to tackle him, 4th and 1. The very next play, Aiden Childs goes for a QB sneak, tries to go up and over. Who met him? Cody Simon met him right there. They both went airborne. Cody Simon went airborne and basically made a wall, a brick wall, and Aiden Childs could not go any further past it. Eventually, more Buckeyes got there. I believe Jordan Hancock came in flying in to be on top to stop Aiden Childs as well. The Buckeyes defense in that moment, they knew what was happening. They even could have gotten down because of the plays that Michigan State had on the opening drive, but they kept their mind right. They stayed consistent. They kept their keys. They kept their eye discipline. And what do you find? Michigan State, even on the opening drive, which is scripted, where you think you're going to have a lot of success, they had some success, but that success did not lead to points because Ohio State got a big stop on 4th and 1. That's stuff championship teams do. Championship defenses get big stops in crucial moments on 4th down, on 3rd down, maybe even later in the game where Michigan State had a chance to score. What happened? On this play, it's 1st and 10 on Ohio State's 37. Sonny Styles gets beat on this play. And there were portions even on the opening drive where Sonny Styles was kind of getting played with. They were reading him or they're trying to key on him and say, hey, if he's here, we know how to get him moving, get him a little shifty. We can go where he used to be, where he is not currently. That's what happened. And so I do think Sonny Styles, as he continues to learn how to play linebacker, other teams are going to try to focus on him, and it happened. But on this play, Sonny Styles, some of the championship level play, Sonny Styles got beat on this play to the tune that Jake Velling got a 26-yard reception. It's only one of the game, but he goes down. He gets tackled at the 11-yard line, which was a forced fumble by Jordan Hancock. Sonny Styles, even though he got beat on this play, he said, I may have gotten beat, but I'm not going to give up. He keeps going. He keeps pursuing Velling. All of a sudden, when Hancock forces the fumble, who's there to recover it? Sonny Styles. A championship level play, the extra effort, the extra momentum. And these are things in the moment. Styles could have said, I got guys all around me. The other 10 guys on this team, I believe them. We work on pursuit drills all the time. And I believe that one of them is going to get the tackle. I don't have to keep going. But he did. He kept going. He kept that extra effort. And that all led to, wow, another big championship level play by Ohio State's defense. Even later on, there was another play in this game. Aiden Childs on 3rd and 3. He drops back to pass. The initial pressure, there was a lot of pressure on this play for Childs with Ty Hamilton and Jack Sawyer. They all they got the initial pressure, and there was a couple of the Buckeyes that are right there as well, forcing him up the pocket. Lathan Ransom forces a fumble. Jack Sawyer recovers it. And I went through those three plays because in the midst of this, there wasn't a Michigan State touchdown. They got some momentum. But then later on, what happened? Jeremiah Smith happened. We're going to talk about him later in the show. But those three plays specifically, even the fourth, because of the 3rd and 9 tackle by Igbinosun, we're seeing championship-level plays that result in turnovers by Ohio State's defense right now. And there's even moments on these plays. And there's a whole lot more in this game. I didn't mention Denzel Burke's interception. I did not mention some numbers I'm going to talk about later on that really stack up with Ohio State's defense and how they are doing a lot of great things right now. This defense is showing, y'all can say whatever you want to about the non-conference slate. It was weak. Ohio State did some great things there, but it wasn't stellar. It wasn't amazing. There were no Power 4 schools in their non-conference slate. So you may say, when there's not that, we don't really know what you are. We want to see you get tested. And Michigan State brought a storm. Michigan State pushed the ball. Michigan State did some really good things offensively, but it wasn't enough. Only one touchdown given up in your Big Ten opener. That's huge. It's on the road. It's in prime time. Not only is it on the road, but it's also your first road game of the season. So there's a lot of new things for this team. Will Howard's leading the offense. Caleb Downs was not only the Locked On Buckeyes defensive player of the game, but also Ohio State's very own team defensive player of the game. It's his first road test with Ohio State as well. Now, playing down there in the South, that's great. I mean, not it. I love football down there in the Southeastern Conference. But when you're making your first road trip with a new team, it's all new. The location where you are playing the games now is different. The hotels, the way that Ryan Day is doing things now is possibly the same or different than the way Saban did things down there in Tuscaloosa. So all of this stuff is new for Caleb Downs, new for Quinshon Judkins, new for a lot of the newcomers. Also new for some of the freshmen like Jeremiah Smith that are playing big factors in the team's success. So a lot of this stuff is new. And even though it's a road test, even though there are things that can kind of get you out of the norm, out of your regular preparation for a night game, the Buckeyes are ready to play, man. I mean, defensively, they were ready to play. And I'm comforted and kind of encouraged by the way that Ohio State's been playing lately. And defensively, when we know that they are going to be a unit that, people are going to try to do different things to mess you up. They're going to try to key on certain guys. Now, they know they can't really focus on Burke like they want to, so they might focus on Igbinosun, or they might focus on Hancock, or they might focus on certain guys from the defensive line. Why? Because they know they can't really focus on other guys, so they're going to focus on the guys that may have some weaknesses in their game or might be weaker players, not weak totally, but weaker players on the defense. Even when that happens, Ohio State's defense as a unit, an entire unit, is rising to the occasion and showing once again why they have one of the best defenses in the country. Our eyeballs show us that, but also go look at the numbers. Points per game given up, opponents passing yards per game, opponents rushing yards per game. Go over there and look at those numbers, and you're going to find even opponents rushing yards per game, Ohio State is in the top 9 in all of those categories. In 3 of the 4 categories, they're in the top 3 in the country. So the numbers back up what our eyeballs are telling us, that Ohio State's defense is one of the best units in the country. We started a trend last week. 3 things that we learned or that we witnessed from Michigan State, that game that Ohio State just won over the weekend. And the first thought in my mind has to do with number 18, because he's doing a lot of things well. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. And some of you that are trying to get ahead of the numbers for Ohio State's game this Saturday at 3:30 Eastern against Iowa, Ohio State is currently 20.5-point favorites over the Iowa Hawkeyes, a better Iowa team than you might expect offensively. And I think that number right now, it would not shock me if that goes under 20 prior to the kickoff of the game. Right now, I'm leading for Ohio State to cover, but that's subject to change based on where the line moves throughout the rest of the week. All the action goes down in a couple places on your mobile app, the FanDuel Sportsbook app, or you can just head to FanDuel.com. Thank you for making Locked On Buckeyes your first listen every day. 3 things after Ohio State's win over Michigan State. And just like last week, this is a 3+1 because the last one is very, very important. It's something I think will be very key for Ohio State when they play the Hawkeyes this coming Saturday in the shoe. The first one's about Will Howard. And Will Howard, to me, is doing a great job of managing Ohio State's offense. He is a guy that when he came in, we knew he was good. He knew the Buckeyes are wanting to have a more mobile quarterback, and Will Howard answered or checked that box. And as he's checking that box, another box he is checking is that he is just managing the Buckeyes offense the same way that he needs to, almost to perfection. There's a couple hiccups. There's hiccups along the way. Sometimes there's bad passes. The boneheaded, stupid interception that he threw. I mean, when I say boneheaded, that's only a phrase I use to describe some really bad decisions. And I remember saying on this show, I watched Anthony Richardson play football. Unfortunately, he got hurt yesterday. But before he got hurt in the first half of that game against the Steelers, there was a routine pass to Michael Pittman Jr. that he should have made, just air-mailed, just right over his head. It was a boneheaded throw. And Will Howard's decision to throw the interception in the double coverage, even in the moment, my wife was asking, who is he throwing the ball to? Because it was just a dumb throw, just a boneheaded decision. He is not making those all the time, though. Will Howard's not going out there week after week after week and just making decisions that cause you to scratch your head and say, hey, man, what are you looking at? No, what he is doing is utilizing his weapons, getting more use out of the tight ends recently. Would have had another completion over the weekend if it weren't for the turf monster causing Bennett Christian to slip. Now, it did rain at halftime, so that pass, the grass was a little slick, and you could see in the replay, Bennett Christian's right foot never got back on the grass. It slid, the side of his foot hit the grass first, and he just slid right to the ground. That would have been another completion and possibly another first down, move the chains for the Buckeyes offense. I like what I've seen from Will Howard. Would I like to see more deep ball stuff? Maybe, but it hasn't really been needed. That was one question mark heading into the season, and he really hasn't had to show it off yet because Buckeyes can just throw drag routes, they can run digs, they can run slants, and what do you find? Ohio State receivers are good enough to slip tack, first catch the ball, turn upfield, become a quick threat to move the ball upfield, get the yak yardage, and what else do you find? They're taking slants 50 yards. They're taking digs 45 yards. They're taking 2-yard routes or even screens 15 yards. So the fact that people are wondering, and myself included, we were wondering, would Will Howard's arm strength be improved? We truly don't know because it really ain't got to be showing it off as much as we maybe want him to. Now, the throw that he made to Jeremiah Smith, the first one, well, the one that was an acrobatic catch, that showed off some arm strength, but that also showed off just Jeremiah Smith simply being that dude. Going to talk about him later on in the show because his performance on Saturday just confirmed that he's just different. And Jeremiah Smith being different is great for Ohio State's offense. Number 2 for today, the Buckeyes defense was challenged in a great way over the weekend. And we did it here on this show. Ramp up the pressure. Now, I heard Ryan Day talk about, well, sometimes the things that the defensive linemen do does not show up in the stat sheet. That's great. That's cool. But what we got this week definitely showed up in the stat sheet as Ohio State had 7 tackles for loss and 4 sacks. Styles had a sack. Tuimoloau had a sack. Mitchell Melton at 1.5 sacks, and then Hicks was the other half of one of Mitchell Melton's sacks. This unit, man, the front four, those guys blitzing in passing situations, and maybe not obvious passing situations, but they blitz into a pass. What we're finding is they're getting more pressure. I mean, we even documented it earlier in the show about how Ohio State's defense is simply just finding ways to make big-time plays. But sometimes Ty Hamilton, Jack Sawyer get some pressure on 3rd and 3, force Aiden Childs to move up into the pocket. It leads to a forced fumble. So this unit, they understand, hey, some of the things that we need to do, they're not going to show up in the stat sheet. But then there are those moments where stuff needs to show up in the stat sheet, and it's happening right now. The Buckeyes getting more pressure is going to lead to more sacks, is going to lead to more tackles for loss. And we may be looking down the road in game 12 after the game against Michigan saying, Tuimoloau has more than 10 sacks this year in the regular season. Not saying the Buckeyes will be undefeated at the moment in time or not, but I had to throw that in there on purpose because he got Oregon coming up. And my preseason prediction, for those of y'all keeping track at home, I haven't wavered on it, have not changed. That may happen after the game against Iowa. I'm waiting for that game to happen before changing that prediction about the outcome of that battle between the Ducks and the Buckeyes. But we should be really pleased and satisfied with the way this unit overall has responded, because the sacks are one thing, but tackles for loss, when you have multiple guys in there getting tackles for loss, not just Styles and JT, Cade McDonald got in the mix, Caleb Downs got in the mix. When you have these guys making tackles behind the line of scrimmage, especially when you have a mobile quarterback like Aiden Childs, now it may down the road lead to him. He still may be able to complete some passes and move the ball. But in the back of his mind, he's always thinking, okay, I got to watch out for 44. I got to watch out for 33. Now I got to watch out for number 2. And now I got to watch out for this guy and for that guy. All of a sudden, the list of guys that the quarterback has to worry about is up to 5 or 6. Think about how many things have to go through your mind at the snap of the ball saying, or pre-snap, well, here's this guy, here's this guy, here's this guy, here's this guy. Here's this guy, here's this guy. That's 6 guys, and they're moving. That's going to mess up your processing and lead to more successful plays for the Buckeyes defense. Next major topic here. The run game maybe exceeded expectations in this game. And I think if you're looking from the outside looking in, if you look at the numbers, you see what Ohio State's run game is doing. But also you see what Michigan State's run defense is doing. They were only giving up 96 rushing yards a game, only giving up on average 2.6 yards a pop. So those are really great numbers. And the defense that Michigan State has, it's going to be one that's going to make some noise in the Big Ten. If the Michigan State offense can find some sort of consistency and not kind of fall to pieces in the second half of games. Now, granted, you're playing Ohio State, it's a little bit different. But if they can find some sort of consistency, the defense is going to be really, 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 really good and continue to do some great things. But the run game, to me, at the end of the first half, that just kind of showed the story that, hey, we know what you're good at. And we're even not doing it at the same rate that we normally do. But to end the first half with more rushing yards than Michigan State allows in any game on average, and to have more yards per carry than what Michigan State normally allows in a game, those are great signs of success. Now, the one thing I would change in this game in regards to the run game is also changing something that was working. So it's kind of, do you want to take away from something that's working very well to put the effort into something else that's going to work very well? It's kind of a give and take. Chip Kelly was calling a lot of pass plays early. Now, maybe he was doing that to open up the run lanes, which worked, but it almost seemed like the old school Ryan Day Ohio State offense, where it's very, very pass heavy, a lot of bubble screens, a lot of smoke screens, where you're throwing the ball really, really quickly, 0-step, 1-step drop, and then the guys are getting up. This time they're getting upfield quickly. I believe early in the game, first drive, there was a quick pass to, I want to say Travion Henderson, and I'm thinking, here we go again, get the Big Ten play, old school Ryan Day Ohio State offense. That wasn't the case at all, no. But it definitely seemed like that. Now, part of me early in the game was saying, hey, run the ball more. But should we really run the ball more when what you're doing is working? Yeah, because I think you need to be more balanced. I think a more balanced attack would have really forced Michigan State to be more off their rocker a little bit, if you want to use that phrase, because things would have been a little bit tricky. Now, last thing here, tricky for them. Last thing here is kind of a +1. I don't know if we're going to do a +1 every single week, but it just fits right now for the past 2 weeks. Tyleik Williams could have played on Saturday in an emergency situation. The belief was that emergency situation would not be needed, but if they needed him to play, he could have. We saw how the defense played without him. Think about how lethal that unit would have been with number 91 on the field. Free 91. If they freed 91, Michigan State would not have been happy. Ohio State fans were happy because Jeremiah Smith once again showed that he is him. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time has a new feature, guys, and it's called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Game Time is a one-stop shop. It allows you to make your ticket purchasing process a whole lot easier than other places. They allow you to get a panoramic view from your seat, which is one of the best things I look for before I buy a ticket. They still have the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And they got that Game Time ticket coverage as well. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Thank you all for making Locked On Buckeyes your first listen every day. Jeremiah Smith, once again, is showing everybody that he is him. He is not playing like a guy who is making his fourth collegiate start or is only playing in his fourth college game ever in his lifetime. No, he looks like a seasoned vet. When you look at him, when he gets off the bus, you're saying, oh, that guy has been playing 3 or 4 years of college football. When you watch him run around, you think, oh, that guy has a future in the NFL. And then when you watch him play in the game, he is doing things that really only Jeremiah Smith can do on Ohio State's roster, which is a big statement to make when you have Emeka Egbuka, who was at worst a future second-round pick in the NFL draft, has the capability to be a first-round pick. But with the way the season's going this year, somebody might say, well, Smith took reps. Smith took receptions from Egbuka. Was it because Egbuka was not great? No. It's because Smith is just that good. But NFL people might try to nitpick and say, oh, things are a little bit different in your final year in Columbus, so you're going to fall to the second round. Still going to make your millions, but I still think Egbuka should be a first-round pick in the NFL draft in the spring. But at worst, a second-round pick, that's not bad at all. But Jeremiah Smith is a guy with as great as Egbuka is, Jeremiah Smith is better. Think about how many guys, when they first get to anywhere in college, their work ethic is questioned, or they say, hey, I can be an Iron Buckeye during workouts, but that doesn't really happen. Jeremiah Smith did that during summer workouts. I believe it was either winter workouts or summer workouts. He came in and was an Iron Buckeye. Y'all, that's unheard of. I don't know if there's ever been a true freshman that's been an Iron Buckeye during their initial time period being in Columbus, but if there is, it's just that rare because we don't really think about it. But Jeremiah Smith's work ethic, the way he conducts himself, his attitude on the football field, we even got to see some of that South Florida chippiness and he's not backing down against anybody. We saw some of that against Michigan State. And when he got his first carry of his young Buckeye career, went for a trip to pay dirt, 19 yards, and he was chirping, he was talking, he was loud. He was just doing his own celebration there because he's showing everybody he can do it all. A little end around action. Now, it was great blocking by Ohio State. Now, I can't go any further without talking about there's a lot of stuff Jeremiah Smith does that Jeremiah Smith is just going to excel at. But there's also some things with his teammates being unselfish. There's not a cancer in the locker room. And if there is, they haven't been exposed and it hasn't been talked about because this locker room just feels different. This team feels different. And for them to immediately accept a guy like Jeremiah Smith, you know he's talented. You know he can do some great things. You know he's a crazy athlete. You know he's a crazy receiver. But for Cardo Tate and Brandon Ennis and Bryson Rogers and Emeka Egbuka and Brian Hartline and everybody else to welcome him in. And Hartline's going to do his great thing to keep the culture right in that room. But for the culture to not be weaker, for maybe to be stronger with Jeremiah Smith in that room, That's a great sign. It's also a great sign that in the first Big Ten game that Jeremiah Smith plays in his career, 5 catches, 83 yards, 1 touchdown through the air, 1 carry, 19 rushing yards, 1 touchdown on the ground. He is showing once again, first game of his career, 2 touchdowns. First Big Ten game, 2 touchdowns. And he's just getting started. With Iowa coming up, Iowa's going to have an extremely fundamentally sound and disciplined defense. And that Kirk Ferentz is going to try to do everything he can to scheme up for Jeremiah Smith to show some freshman mistakes. What's Jeremiah Smith going to do is what we all expect him to do. Just be that dude, to be him. That's not a phrase I use on this show very often at all, if I do. I'm more of a guy that says, hey, you're that dude, or Ohio State needs dudes. Jeremiah Smith is a dude. He is that dude. You could use both of those things there. But if I want to use a phrase like, hey, he is him, it's kind of like if I say somebody is the GOAT. You're just in a class of your own. Nobody can touch you. Now, I understand there's some comments that I made about, I believe it's Ryan Williams, a phenomenal receiver at Alabama. And people in the comments on YouTube, which I normally don't check, but I went back and saw it. Somebody says, oh, Ryan Williams is into the conversation or something along those lines, saying Jeremiah Smith is great, and people saying, oh boy, down at Alabama is great as well, which he is. I'm not going to lie about it. He's really, really good. And I love seeing young, talented wide receivers do their thing in college football. But I don't cover Alabama. But also, I still think Jeremiah Smith is still him in a class of his own. I don't care who has more receptions, who has more receiving yards, who has more touchdowns. I don't really care. I don't care. But what I do know is this. Number 4 is rising to the occasion. His first Big Ten game was on the road, and he was not shying away from the moment at all. The lights were not too bright. He was not afraid of anything Sparty was going to throw his way. Why? Because he is him. And when you are him, the other team is going to throw their best at you. They're going to throw the kitchen sink. They're going to try to do everything they can to get you out of your norm, to get you to make some mistakes that you normally don't make. Michigan State tried that, even face masked him on that one catch that he made, the first acrobatic catch that he caught on that same drive. Sparty tried some things to throw him off. It didn't happen. It wasn't successful. Even after that miraculous catch, that amazing catch he made another one where Devin Brown threw a dot on the rope to Jeremiah Smith. He made that thing, brought it in with one hand, and what did he do? He showed the world that once again, in the shoe, on the road, conference or non-conference, it does not matter. He is going to do the same thing every single week and show everybody that he is him, because Jeremiah Smith is him. And we saw that once again Saturday night in prime time. Sparty had a plan. Their plan wasn't good enough because Jeremiah Smith, he overcame that plan and made sure that his plan was way better than anything Michigan State threw at him. Thank you all for making Locked On Buckeyes your first listen today. For your second listen, find Locked On College Football. From NIL deals to never-ending conference realignment rumors, my guy Spencer McLaughlin gets you all ready for an exciting season on the gridiron. Find Locked On College Football on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can follow me on Twitter at jstevens07. Send every email to jstevens317@gmail.com. Buckeye fans, we're out of here on another Victory Monday. We'll see you next time.